Alright, well howdy folks. It's been a little while since I've had a video put out on the channel, so I wanted to get back into the swing of things now that things have kind of settled and mellowed out a little bit due to, shall we say, recent events, right? So yeah, trying out another location again, and let's see if it works a little bit better from the last time I shot, because I think there was a little bit of an echo, but hopefully it works better this time. But anyways, so what I want to cover this time is a Star BM9, and you can see it right here, or at least one of the many examples that I've gone through in the past 3 years. So this is a handy little 9mm single stack kind of 1911-ish kind of looking clone, quote unquote, and I use that kind of loosely because internally this is not a 1911, and in fact it differs in a lot of ways, which I will cover as I talk about it. So the story with these things is like more than a year ago now, these started to come into the surplus market, and they were absolutely everywhere. Like every store had one, every store was getting these in. You know, Sweaty Ben's was getting them in, J&G Sales was getting them in. Like all the places that sold surplus guns were just getting like tons and tons and tons of these things in. And you know, for the price that they were going for at the time, you could get a roughly similar condition one to this one for like $200, $250, depending on where you got it from. And I was really curious, and I was into, you know, I'm into surplus stuff, so I thought, you know, why not? Let me get a little 1911 style looking-ish kind of gun that's in 9mm, right? So I picked up the first one I picked up was from AIM Surplus, and holy crap, that thing was like beat to hell. Like they were like, oh, it's like surplus, you know, good condition, right? And I expected a good condition. But when I got it in, like there was substantial pitting inside the barrel, inside the slide, everything like that. It was bad. It was rough. So I took a whole bunch of pictures and sent it back to AIM, and they sent me another one for free to replace it. So that was really cool of them. And the one I got then was in much better condition. So managed to do that, and then these things were just everywhere at the time, and I was kind of in a buy-in mood. So I bought like 2 more of these. So I had up to 3 at one point, and I gave one to a friend of mine as a gift. And he seemed to like it, so you know, because they're nice cheap pistols, but doesn't mean they're necessarily low quality. I mean, these things actually do work quite well, and they have worked quite well for me. All the examples that I've owned and shot, except for that one exception of the first one I got, have been you know, acceptable, workable quality. They're not going to blow you away in terms of like being all fresh and new and everything, but you know, if you need like a kind of like a working man's gun, this is plenty fine. So anyway, so these usually came with, as far as I know, almost all the examples that I've seen, anyways, have this giant, massive freaking billboard right there that you can see in the reflection on the bluing right there, which is really nice actually. Giant billboard courtesy of Century Arms, because they love to freaking do that on their guns. I hate it when they do that. There's one big criticism of Century, among many, that they put freaking billboards on the side of their gun, and it just makes it look really ugly. And the kind of like stenciling, penciling, whatever you want to call it, the method they use to engrave these things is absolutely terrible. I don't like it. It makes the guns look trashy. Yeah, these things would come in all kinds of various conditions and everything, and they usually came with the original box, which I have right here. It's big cardboard box from Spain, and usually they came with like the manual. It's in Spanish. It's pretty cool. A cleaning rod, and if you're lucky, they gave you an extra mag. But when I was shopping around for this, I learned something about the surplus market, and that is magazines. When these kinds of things become available, and there's like tons and tons of these mags around, the secret is basically to buy like a shitload of these things. Like if you're getting like one pistol, get like 10 mags, because these things almost always become way more expensive, way harder to find. You know, even 6 months, 8 months down the road, these things just get really hard to find and very expensive. So when I bought these magazines were probably like 15, 20 bucks at the most, from like J&G Sales, or I think it was J&G Sales where I got these. Yeah, like 15, 20 bucks a mag. But now you try to look for these things, they start at like freaking 35 bucks a mag for this little dinky little 8-round 9mm single stack mag. You know, crazy. Now there is a conversion to take SIG P225 magazines and convert them to work in Star pistols, but I'm kind of against having to modify stuff if you don't have to. So there are methods out there to do that. Y'all can look it up on YouTube if you want to figure out how to do that, but that's just another way you can source mags for this gun if you have difficulty finding it. So yeah, so these things are everywhere. I bought a few and kind of moved them around, traded them, sold them, whatever. And this is the last one that I have. And I did put some replacement grips on it. That J&G Sales has quite a few of these wooden grips. They had like J&G Sales had a lot of like package deal stuff with these pistols, and it was pretty nice. You know, reasonably priced, not terribly like cheap, but you know, decent price for what you're getting. You know. So I put the wood grips on here and it feels pretty good, looks good, just a good gun. In terms of shooting though, the triggers on these are surprisingly really good. They're very light. They are single action only, and they differ from 1911s in the sense that if you look at the back here, there's no grip safety panel for you to depress. Okay. That's one of the big major differences. The other difference is that, see if you check it for you. The other difference is that on 1911 triggers, it goes straight back as you're pulling it. It doesn't pivot, it doesn't turn or anything. It's a straight back action. These triggers actually pivot, and you can see that right there. As I'm pushing on it right there, you can see how it kind of pivots. And there's a small pinhole up here as well, and that's kind of what it sits on. That's a pivoting trigger. So it works a little bit different from a traditional 1911, but the triggers on these are still very light, very crisp. They break cleanly, and the reset is surprisingly short. So maybe I can illustrate that here. So, let's see how I'm going to do this. All right, so just pulling on it, a little bit of take up, tiny bit of take up, like hardly anything at all. And then, man, look at that. Hardly any effort on my part. So reset, right there. Man, that is super short. So, and it has a safety right here on the left that you can get with your thumb on and off. Pretty positive. My major complaint though is that this does not have a firing pin safety block. So if I go to, let me take this apart, I can try to illustrate that for you. So I'm taking this down. This has a little notch back there with the safety right there, and you pull the slide back, put the safety up so it'll keep it in place. Then you pop that cross pin out, very similar to a 1911. Let the slide go, comes apart just like that. But this gun does not feature a firing pin safety block. Let me gotta fiddle with this one second. I think I may have taken this apart incorrectly. Anyway, this recoil spring is a little hard to work with sometimes. There we go. Anyway, so in the slide here, you can see on the back here, there is no like plunger type safety that you're used to seeing with a lot of modern pistols will have a firing pin safety block. This one does not. And that kind of is what contributes to the really nice trigger pull on this gun, is because there's no additional safety for the trigger mechanism to have to work around in order to move the sear and drop the hammer. That's kind of what makes the trigger so good, right? Unfortunately though, that also makes this a little bit dangerous to carry because, I'm not going to say who, but there's a particular individual I know who may have had an incident, shall we say, where he dropped it and the gun went off, which is entirely capable of what this pistol can do. It's an older design, antiquated design. That's kind of how things were back then. You know, people didn't really think about that kind of stuff. So I would not really recommend it for like a daily carry piece. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of better options out there if you ask me. But that's a notable characteristic of this pistol. So I'm just getting it back together here. Let's see what else here. Get that back in here. Now this thing also suffers from the usual issues that 1911s have, is because you kind of have to have everything lined up just right. There we go. Cool. Back together. So, how did it shoot? For me, pretty dang well, because I love 1911s. I shoot them very well. And even with the very, very rudimentary sights that you can see on there, it's just a very, very simple, you know, notch and blade in the front, and there's a little bit of white out on the front too for some reason. Probably to provide a little bit of contrast. But, you know, right at shooting at 20 and 25 yards, I was hitting pretty dang good with this thing, even with it being as small as it is and the sight radius being as short as it is. It actually worked out quite well for me. And then anything like 15, 10, and 7 and 5 yards, I'm basically getting the same ragged hole over and over and over. So these little pistols are very unassuming, you know, and they're quite accurate for what they are. They don't initially appear like a super quality piece, you know, like because Star is not really a household name here in the States, you know, like they kind of had their time back in the day, but they never quite took off here in the States, and now they're no longer a company, and there's probably a reason for that. So, you know, but overall, a really unassuming pistol, but surprisingly good, especially for the money. You know, where else can you get right now today, like this all steel frame, 9mm commander-sized 1911 style pistol that shoots as good as this does? You know, it's you'd be hard pressed to find something that gives you pretty much this much value for what you're paying. So I quite like these little pistols. I mean, there's a reason why I bought like 3 or 4 of them. They're just really cool, high value pieces. I definitely recommend them. If you're into, you know, surplus guns, or you just want a cheap, you know, piece that functions well and has that nice kind of 1911 aesthetic to it, you know, it's hard to go wrong with one of these. But of course, as with all surplus stuff, condition is king. So absolutely make sure you do your tests and really check out these pistols on the inside and out before you make your decision to buy, if you can, that is. Buying sight unseen online is a little bit of a gamble, but I would imagine most reputable retailers and everything would consider a return if they had any left, for a really rough example like the one I got from AIM Surplus. Great job on them for fulfilling that return. It was really nice of them to do that. So yeah, I really quite like these pistols. Really recommend them. And I just wanted to do a quick video before I eventually sold and moved this one, because I need to kind of thin down my arsenal a little bit. I don't really shoot this one that often anymore, so time to thin down and move on to different things. So anyway, that's just a quick little coverage there. The Star BM9, awesome pistol, great pistol. You know, really good value. They got a really nice bluing to them. They're all steel. It's a good quality pistol. Star is not known for making, you know, poor quality firearms. It's just they're just not a very well known company, but they did make pretty good stuff back in the day. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. And if you guys got any questions or anything about Star BM9, just let me know, and hopefully I can answer them as the best that I can. So yeah, we'll catch you next time.